You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. My name is Dan Roberts and I'm joined for the first time since Southampton, I think we just worked out, by Matt Kendrick. Matt, how are you? You okay?
Been a while, hasn't he?
Feels like it.
Too busy playing football with Ashley Priest in Cameron Archer's back garden to come on here, mate, to be honest.
We lost him
I'm
30
back.
seconds in. He's back. Well, today we're doing a first. It's a fan phone in, and I've not done it as a live. We are live, but the fans aren't live because I was wary of what people might say. And you come in with a Cameron Archer, Ashley Priest joke 25 seconds in. I can't vet you, can I? But I think we've got 20 or 21 fans that have sent their opinions in or a question. I've lined them all up as a little voice note, so thank you for everyone for getting involved. This is the first time we've tried something like this, and we've nassed about it a few times. I think it is a decent concept. There's some Gerrard out stuff, there's some Gerrard in stuff, there's some stuff about tactics and players and signings. I've got them in no particular order, but each one is labelled with the person's name and like a little pull-out quote or title of each one. Like I said, they're in no particular order, so if we listen to one and we think, oh, we've already kind of answered something like that, we'll just move on to the next person. I'm going to kind of wing it like we do on most of the stuff on the channel. Before we do get into that, though, just quickly on Nottingham Forest from your point of view, because obviously presser was yesterday, we did our preview yesterday, but we don't play till Monday, so it feels like this elongated period before we actually play the game. Steve Cooper's signed a new contract since then, and their atmosphere is going to be bouncing by the sounds of it. How much do you think that will affect it, first of all? And then I'll ask you a secondary question on Forest before we get into these.
Yeah, it's been rebranded El Sakiko again, hadn't it? Before Cooper had signed that. I mean, it's a strange old club, isn't it? Nottingham Forest with what's gone on there. I don't know. I think from what I hear, I mean, I've not been to the City Ground. Well, I've been there for a conference, and I've been there for a friendly. I think when McLeish was manager potentially, but I've not been there when it's bouncing, so I don't know but I hear really good things about it. I hear
one of my first work trips when I first joined, which was 3 years ago, up to the week. I think I had a notification this week on LinkedIn. You sent me to Forest Derby as one of my first kind of speak to the fans and get some atmosphere stuff, and that was loud. That was obviously a championship game. It's a derby game, so it's obviously special in that aspect. But that was loud, and you can't think, proper club, get Forest, get back in the Premier League, etc. And their fans have stuck with them all the way. Even on Monday night last week, when they're 3-0 down, 4-0 down to Leicester, their fans are still going. So you give them respect for that. But I was saying on our preview yesterday, like it's without a goal for however long, or they've not kept a clean sheet, or they've not scored. So upstep Aston Villa to give Forest an easy win, almost in jest. But now Cooper signed that contract and isn't going to be sat before the game. You kind of think, I'm a bit more worried about the game now than I was, and I probably ought to be. I still think we'll probably win, but I'm a little bit more worried now than I was.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before, haven't we? Villa playing out of form teams back into form for many years, and I'm sure other clubs fans would say the same about that their own clubs. But I think the thing with Forest is, I think Steve Cooper will have massive goodwill in the bank because he's the bloke who's delivered them promotion, after a very, very long wait. And I think that they realised, I think most Forest fans would have realised that this was always going to be a slog anyway. And if anything, I mean, I might be wrong, but I can't see Steve Cooper as being the driving force behind the mad recruitment drive that went on. He would have known, a bit like when Dean Smith took us up, he would have known that squad needed surgery to give it any kind of chance of competing in the Premier League. But I think he's almost having to manage in the Premier League, learn how to manage in the Premier League, and having to try and manage the circus that's around him. So I think that's a really difficult gig for him, albeit a very bright and clearly clued up bloke. I don't know. I don't know whether it makes much difference because to me it depends on how Aston Villa are set up for that game. Can we go there and silence the crowd by playing on the front foot, doing things a bit quicker, scoring full stop?
Good point.
And so I don't know. I feel, I obviously watched the Leeds game on the telly last week, and like everybody else, was very disappointed that we couldn't turn that man advantage into actually going on and winning the game. But I just, it almost feels a little bit too much like that we're working too hard, or that the club are working too hard at this turn a corner narrative. I'm not quite convinced we are.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I think we're still walking down that road of a slump before we can even look to turn a corner. But going there, getting a victory, hopefully scoring a couple of times, I think it'd be a good start. But I wouldn't be putting any money on it.
Okay, that's enough on Nottingham Forest. I think I'm sure they'll get another mention throughout this. Like I said, let's get onto these fans then. I think there's 20. Each one has got a title or a pull-out quote. So I'm going to give you an option of 2 each time until we whittle it down to the last one. So you can pick between the 2 titles. Okay, so some of these are harsher than others, which is, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Alex, unpopular opinion, or Ben with stop the negativity.
Go with Ben.
Okay, Ben, stop the negative. Probably should have saved this towards the end because most of the others are quite negative. But Ben, start us off with a positive.
GERRARD isn't going anywhere until at least the World Cup break. So I think we just need to stop the negativity, to be honest, and focus on the positives. We're unbeaten in the last 3 games. We've got clean sheets in the last 2 games. Second half against Leeds, we didn't score, but we did dominate them, really, and we should have put some chances to bed. Coutinho looked better. Buendia looked decent when he came off the bench. Watkins continues to miss those chances, but that's unfortunately the type of striker he is. It isn't great, and things definitely do need to improve, but I just think we just need to stop the negativity. We just need to try and be positive, get behind GERRARD and get behind the lads, and hopefully we'll move up the table.
There we go, our first ever fan phone-in section there from Ben. Thanks for sending that in. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously, like I said, most of these after this are probably going to be quite negative, so let's get the positives out of the way. Do you feel optimistic? Do you feel there's reasons for positivity?
Are you a friend of GERRARD's, Ben? Do you know the family? No, listen. I think he does make some valid points. I think all this needs to be placed in the context of us sacking a successful manager a year ago and being told that the reason was that this club's got ambitions beyond consolidating or battling in the bottom end of the Premier League, and that we should be making continuous improvements. So any negativity must be seen in that context, that we were convinced of the idea that we're a club who wants to be at that top table very quickly, which is why we got a big name manager, which is why we were able to bring in players of the ilk of Coutinho. So I take the point completely that us all being doom and gloom doesn't really do anybody any favours, really. But what I would say is that this is a kind of partnership. I think we're not me and you. I mean, we've not seen you for months, but it's a partnership between the fans and the club. So do we feed off them? Do they feed off us? And I think we need to see more. And Ben's outlined a couple of things there. But like I said at the start, you should have saved Ben till the end. Like I said at the start, I'm not convinced that corner is turned yet. So I think fans can reserve the right to be disappointed, frustrated, question why we're not doing better than we are. I don't know whether that automatically equals negativity if people are doing that. I think if you're inside a stadium, and I've always said the stadium is a barometer of these things, much better than social media, much better than podcasts and all that kind of thing. If you're in the stadium and you're not giving people a chance from minute one, what's the minute one, the first minute, then I can understand people saying it's negative. I haven't really quite seen that yet at Villa Park. I think it's been a very an atmosphere.
Well, I said, in the Southampton podcast, there was people singing, Stephen Giles, Clark Brahmi and stuff, and I was almost taken aback a little bit, thinking, well, the mood online is very much on the edge of GERRARD out rather than in. So for the stadium to be singing in his name, you kind of think, oh, this goes against what I've seen. Two things are totally different, but there's usually a bit of an overlap. But yeah, like you said, there hasn't been that negativity creep into the stadium yet. If we lose on Monday night, God forbid, I think you will see a bit of that.
I think, put it in perspective as well, I haven't listened to any of these clips, so I don't know what's coming, but I should imagine from what you're saying that Ben is possibly one of the more positive ones that we've got who's phoned in. And even though one of the most positive ones is saying, well, he might be sacked by the World Cup. We're only talking,
7 games, yeah.
We're talking 6 weeks away. So that shows where we're at a football club, that even people who are kind of very, very pro Gerrard think that he could be doomed to be sacked in 6 weeks' time. So no, it's like I said, I've run out of words here. Which is unlike me. I think the thing is, we just need more encouragement, don't we? We just need something that we can really, really get behind. And the Man City game probably was it. The Man City game was it. What have we followed that up with? Has that?
I think if we'd have beat Southampton 3-0, and even if we still had drawn with Leeds on Monday night, you'd still go, oh, okay, well, we've had two good performances in a row there. Leeds is kind of, a bit of a weird one. Follow it up with Forest and do something there, but just scrape over the line in a very boring game against Southampton. Leeds not being able to face 10 men. Just kind of, you got Man City, which wasn't exactly a high, but probably the highest point of the season so far. And instead of following that up with a nice trajectory upward, you've kind of gone, going back on a downward spiral again to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's just finding some energy in our form and in our run, to be honest, because 5 points from the last 3 games, and I'm coming around to Ben's way of thinking there, 5 points from the last 3 games aren't that bad. But the fact, if they'd have been preceded by 10 points prior to that, would have been fine. But the fact that what came before it was very, very underwhelming. We need more to get us out of this kind of hole and out of this mood that we're in, basically.
Yeah. Okay, we probably need to be speeding up a little bit for some of these if we're going to go through all of them. And I'm going to try and get through all of them today. I'll do the same again. Actually, before we can move on to them, just quickly, I mean, they're more nuanced than just a yes or no, but kind of agree or disagree. And the same question to the comments as well with Ben. Do you agree with him or do you disagree? And then move on.
What do you think?
I agree, but to an extent.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever, if there is negativity, stop it. Yeah, I do agree in that sense, but I don't think the negativity has overtaken. Certainly not inside the stadium.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll use the same one. Can you turn that notification off, by the way, if you don't mind?
Sure, it's something important, but never mind.
I'll use the other one this time. So Alex, unpopular opinion again, or Jay, stubborn selections.
Go for Alex this time.
Okay.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but do you think on recent form, not on paper, we may as well have just kept with 𝐲𝐮𝐫 and Trezeguet and paid big money for the marquee signings, as at the moment they couldn't be doing any worse than our attack is currently.
Okay, so some of the audio on these isn't brilliant. That's probably one of the worst ones. Basically, I don't know whether you heard it right or not. Would we have been better off keeping 𝐲𝐮𝐫 and Trezeguet and Traoré, etc., rather than spending big money on the likes of Bailey and Buendia? Because they can't be doing much worse. I'll start with my agree or disagree. I'll say disagree, first of all. I think the players that we sign are better than the ones we replaced. It's just that they've not clicked into the right system or the right form yet.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the numbers will probably, this is why you need Townley or Pat on. But I should imagine the numbers in terms of goals and assists. I can't imagine that that the new crew performing that much better than the old guy. Right. So in that sense, you'd probably say that we've got a point.
Well, 𝐲𝐮𝐫 scored 10 goals in that one season, and I think Leon Bailey scored 2 so far. So just from a goal output perspective, 𝐲𝐻's probably got more than those combined.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because if you'd proposed that at the start of the summer, people would have accused the club of lacking ambition massively. But that's because we had faith in the board and the manager and the powers that be to not only recruit good quality players, but to get them to click. I don't know. I mean, I think it's very harsh in the extreme if we're writing off Buendia and Bailey and Coutinho, all of whom have shown a good level. Coutinho at the real heights of European football. Bailey is a very good player in the Bundesliga. Buendia, albeit in a poor Norwich City squad, sparkled in the Premier League previously. So I think it would be harsh to write them off. I'm not sure there's any real place where we could have not gone out and tried to improve.
Yeah.
And I think, Trezeguet and 𝐲𝐻 wrote both really, really good servants who we think of affectionately. But I don't necessarily think this is a player issue. I think it's about the manager and the coaching staff getting those players, getting the right combination of players on the pitch with the right tactics and getting some confidence back into them, rather than the fact that those players shouldn't have been signed.
So agree or disagree with Alex's unpopular opinion there?
Is he saying we shouldn't have signed them? We should have stuck with the two that we've got?
I think so. I mean, I was about to say, don't ask me to replay any of these, because once I play them, I'm like deleting them off my list, so I don't accidentally click the same one again. So I can't.
Well, I don't think we were wrong to sign the three attacking players that were mentioned.
Okay, all right, fair enough. The next one I'm going to pick by choice because I know that it's linked to the topic we're just talking about, and if we leave it till later, we'll go, oh, that's pointless. So this one's from Ollie. Title is "He's Naff." This one's a video as well, so thanks, Ollie, and keep an eye out for the dog as well.
So I think Gerrard's made quite a lot of errors since he came in. But I think one error that he's made that isn't spoken enough about is the fact that he let Bertrand Traoré go off on loan this season. In the season under Smith, where we finished 11th, Traoré was brilliant on the right. And yeah, he couldn't last 90 minutes, but he was pretty effective. He got quite a lot of goals and assists. Now our only option on the right is Bally, and he is naff. So we've got no other option for that right side, or no other effective option. We should have kept Traoré, because Bally's last couple of performances have been awful, and it would have been nice to be able to put Traoré on the right wing, because he'd definitely do more than Bally.
Well, we've just talked about it to a certain extent, but do you agree with the main point there, that Bailey's naff?
No, I don't agree with that he's naff. I think we could see a lot more from him. And again, we've seen little glimmers, but nothing over a concerted period of time. I wasn't really listening because you told me to look at the dogs. No, I was listening really. Again, Traoré.
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? We've talked about it loads of times. It's always the players that aren't available anymore are the ones that are the well beaters. You know, we don't have a great game in midfield, and Sanson is suddenly the answer after 2 years of barely kicking a football. Traoré, how many times have we come on here and said that he's frustrated the hell out of us, and he'll do a nice little moment of magic, but you just think he's not good enough, and now he's gone off to play out in Turkey, I think it is. So, well, that's clearly the standard then, isn't it? So yeah, Traoré's probably naff, not Bailey.
You know, I didn't see too many petitions up and running when either El Ghazi, Traoré or Trezeguet left. Again, players are going to fall by the wayside as you try to evolve. You know, theoretically, we've signed better players. I do take the point that, and I'm conscious that I'm going to rattle on too long for all these, so we will speed up. But I do take the point that our options down that right side, are limited potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But equally, you've got, you tell me, you've got Bailey who can play there. Buendia can play there. Coutinho can play there. We're not playing with wingers as such, are we? So,
but Traoré would have played off the right and cut in on his left.
Yeah.
So he would have fit into the same kind of narrow system. But
Yeah.
again, I wouldn't have been that bothered when he left. And if you were in a bit of a hole and looking for somebody to come on, and Traoré comes on, I would still be thinking, well, he ain't going to do anything.
Yeah, but even if we're all frustrated and disappointed, but I'm not I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm not clamouring thinking, you know what this team's missing? It's missing Bertrand Traoré. I'm not thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's move on from this winger debate then.
The dog was super cute.
Yeah, it made a little noise as well. Did you hear that?
I did hear the noise. I thought it was my stomach rumbling.
No, there's a little dog kind of squealing or whatever. Yeah, thanks, Ollie, for sending that in. I think it was Ollie's dad, actually, that might have sent that one in, so thanks for sending that. Jay, stubborn selections, or Chris, who has improved?
Chris.
Okay, Chris, our short one.
My question for you is, which players do you think have noticeably improved under Gerrard's coaching 11 months in? For my money, I can only make an argument for Cash, and at a push Ramsey, though Smith, who trusted him in the first place.
Thoughts? Who's improved in the last year?
Ramsey was going to be the one that I'd said, and he's right that it was Smith who kind of trusted him initially. I don't think he was necessarily a first-team regular under Smith. He might have been flirting with the idea of it, but I think Gerrard's kind of picked him pretty much every week or most weeks. And I do think, I wish we'd got more like him, to be honest. I'm not saying you could have a team of Jacob Ramseys, but to me, there's only him and the two he's mentioned, actually, him and Cash, who actually carry the ball forward with any degree of, oomph.
Yeah, true.
So those two, I'm just trying to think, could you make an argument for anybody else? Don't
Honestly,
know.
I don't think you can.
You could argue that Tyrone Mings has in the last few weeks, but I'm not prepared to give Gerrard that one as a masterstroke, because I think Tyrone Mings was, do you know what I mean, in good form anyway, albeit with an occasional blip in him. So yeah,
I think if you flip the question and said who's worse now than they were 12 months ago, you'd get more than 2 players, and that probably says everything.
Yeah.
Do we want to try and list those players, or should we move on to the next one?
Nah, move on, mate.
Okay.
Stop the negativity. Listen to Ben.
Yeah, all right. Good point. Jay, stubborn selections. We're going to be stubborn and probably still not pick this one again. Or Matt with Smith or Gerrard.
Let's go for Jay, because we don't want him to have to listen to the whole thing for him to get his question on.
Come on, then, take it away, Jay.
I actually used to really like the tactics that he used to use. There was a lot of playing out from the back and using high, wide fullbacks as well to add that attacking threat. I think it was actually the selections that just completely killed that tactic entirely. And the main issue is that in midfield, we just simply don't have the players, or we're not using the players that are good on the ball in terms of making those short, simple passes. Kamara has no one to pass the ball to in midfield, which means either Coutinho has to drop deep to pick up the ball, but he's pressured, or he has to go backwards to Mings, and Mings just fires it up long for Watkins. But when we have Louise in the side, Kamara has actually someone to play with, someone to play the ball to. It creates space in the midfield for someone like Coutinho to receive the ball in space and then turn and do what he does best, which is linking the play with the high fullbacks. This season, before Kamara got injured, he had no one to play with. And now, because of these stubborn selections, we've just got McGinn always starting. We've got Ramsey always starting, which is a good thing because he carries the ball, but they're too similar in that they're not going to be doing those short passes to link up the play. So for me, it's the selections that kill us.
That was one of the longer ones, and I should say, by the way, people that sent me these, some of them were like 3 or 4 minutes long, and just for the time of the podcast, I have edited them down a little bit and tried to keep the most of the points there. But as I was listening to that one back again there, I thought, I think that's spot on. I think I agree with most of the things Jay said there.
Yeah, I mean, you've titled it stubborn selections. So I do think Jay made lots of very valid points. My mind, when you say stubborn selections, does go to, playing Coutinho at times when we've seen Buendia looking hungrier and making more impact in 20 minutes than Coutinho has over 60 or 70 minutes. And almost the Tyrone Mings things at the start of the season when you don't think Mings had deserved to fall out of the team, and persisting with McGinn very early on. Now, I do think those are issues, and I think managers over time, whoever they are, will have their favourites. But I've seen some signs in recent games that Gerrard has taken a step back, and he's benched Coutinho a couple of times, and swallowed his pride with whatever happened with Mings and got him back in the team. McGinn was hauled off a couple of times, I think, before the end of the game, quite early on, I think, against Man City, if I remember rightly. So I do agree that stubborn selections have hindered Villa, but I've seen a couple of signs that Gerrard is learning, and I think that is a young manager who's having to learn quite quickly that you might think that you should have super loyalty to this player or that player, or that in the past you've been able to trust them more. But when the evidence in front of your eyes says that that's not working, you've got to be brave enough to go and manage and to make those decisions. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree with stubborn selections, but I still don't think Gerrard is 100% sure how to get the best of that team. So, is it stubbornness? Is it uncertainty? I don't know. I think it's a very young manager who's learning his trade in a really unforgiving environment at a time when he's only really known winning regularly before, which comes with being. If you win regularly, you're part of a group of confident players, and he's having to tactically try and get them set up in a way that they can compete, but also he's having to try and put an arm around and engender confidence that's not necessarily there.
I don't want to kind of go too much into tactics, as you can imagine. There's another, I don't know, 17 or what left, and there's a few more on that vein of different formations and stuff. So we'll kind of ebb and flow throughout. So Matt, Smith or Gerrard, or Matt, another Matt. There's lots of Matts and Bens, by the way. 2 Matts. Gerrard is still the man, or Smith or Gerrard?
Do we not get a clip?
I'm going to ask you which one you want.
Oh, sorry. I thought.
Come on.
I thought that was a. Whichever. Sorry, I didn't. I thought that was the question without the. Go on.
Do you believe that the performances under Dean Smith were better than the Steven Gerrard era at the moment, as well as you can see an identity under Dean Smith? Do you believe the performances are better when Dean Smith were around? And if Dean Smith had the same players that we have now, would he get better results?
What do you make of that one?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you're talking about Smith was there for 3 years versus Gerrard's been there for
35 games.
A year now. So was Dean Smith's 7-2 victory over Liverpool better than Steven Gerrard's 1-0 victory over Southampton? Yes, and I wasn't even in the ground to see the first one. I don't know. I mean, this is, and I don't. Was that Matt? Did you say you sent that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't begrudge Matt for sending the clip, and I'm grateful to everybody who's contributing. But I don't know how helpful it is. Do you know what I mean? Because Dean Smith's not going to come back if Steve Gerrard sacked on Monday night or whatever. Dean Smith's not going to come back. I presume the point of it is, have we made any progress? And I don't think we've made any progress. So I don't think we're necessarily worse than the last 6 games of Dean Smith's reign. But I probably would have had more encouragement for Dean Smith to come out of a rut and get things right, because that's what happened during lockdown. And it was very, very miserable. And I know circumstances changed, the world changed. He got a different way of working with that squad, but he was able to really kind of find a way to get out of poor form and kickstart Villa again. We'll see. We've got 5 points from 3 games. These are little green shoots of recovery. We'll see. I'm cynical still that we're going to come out of this. And I think this season, regardless of what happens, I don't think this is going to be a season of progress. I don't see how it can be a season of progress. So I think we're almost competing with a much bigger wage bill, with a much bigger expectation level. We're competing to match what we did 2 years ago. Yeah. So I don't know whether I've sidestepped that question rather than answering it. But...
Well, does you take it as however you like? I assume you didn't watch the match preview yesterday. Me and John did.
I haven't seen it, mate. I was washing my
hair. Not time. Fair enough. Basically, there was a quiz question in that. I looked at, obviously, Gerrard's had 35 games in charge at the moment, not quite a full season, but near enough. So I looked at Gerrard's 35 versus Dean Smith's last 35. Do you want to have a guess at the points totals for each one?
Dean Smith's last 35?
His last 35 games, so 2021 backwards.
It would have been quite bleak, wouldn't it? Because we didn't end that previous season very well. 35 games?
35 games each, yeah.
Smith, 35 games, 35 points? I don't know.
It was... it's not in front of me. I think it's 38 points.
Okay.
No, 39 points.
And Gerrard's 35 games, exactly the same. Go on, I don't know.
43 points for Gerrard.
Was it?
So slightly more, which I said to John, I don't really know what point I'm making there. I don't know whether I'm making out of Gerrard's better than Smith, but I feel like the mood under Smith was never as bad as it is under Gerrard at the moment. Whereas the points total suggests that we're actually better under Gerrard, technically.
Yeah, I think to me it just shows very similar, not an absence of continuous progress. Basically, unless you're claiming those 4 points of continuous. But, I take the point as a loose idea of how they both compare. Who knows what teams would have played in the... probably pretty close because the Premier League's been pretty set. But, we've got to get over him, haven't we, to be honest?
I'm over it.
The Dean Smith era's been and gone. You say the mood is pretty bleak now. The mood was pretty bleak when we lost six on the spin under Dean Smith. So it's
more. The mood's bleak now after 3 unbeaten.
yeah, it's a good point.
All right, let's move on because there's still loads left. There was a couple of people that audio was either really bad or whatever, so I've actually recorded the voiceover for 2 of these. I can't remember which ones it is, so I might say, here's Ben, and then it'll be me. So we've got Max, give him till the World Cup, or Anthony, go 50-50, Gerrard needs to go. Which avenue do you want to go down here?
Oh, you choose.
God. Let's go with the negative one first of all, Anthony. This is a video as well.
I personally think that Gerrard needs to go. I think we need to get a manager who actually seems to have, who can actually build an identity. Because obviously we've had Gerrard now for a year and we still have not seen an identity. And it just seems a bit odd that a manager can come in, have 12 months, and we still do not actually know what he's trying to do. So that's my first point. And my second point, or my second thing I would like to ask you guys is, what do you guys think of the new badge? I haven't seen one yet. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think of us having a new badge.
I thought we got Anthony was sneaky there and got an extra bonus question into his video.
I'd rather answer the badge one than the Gerrard must go one, but
yeah, let's get the thing with the Gerrard must go thing out of the way first of all. The identity thing, is that a problem for you that we're now sat here 11 months down the line and we still don't really know what we're trying to do, or do you not really care because it is 3 games unbeaten and we are looking slightly better?
I think it's a problem when you haven't got enough points on the board. To me, I wouldn't mind my team beating the 19 teams that they play in 38 different ways over the course of the season. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if one, they were counter-attacking, one, they were, do you know what I mean? They were attacking. So I think when things are bad and you want to try and find a winning combination, that's when you kind of crave an identity. So I do take his point. We're a year in and we don't really know, and I've said this lots of times on this podcast, we don't really know how those very, very impressive attacking players are supposed to be hurting teams regularly. So I do take his point. It's, I don't know, it's the Gerrard must go thing, isn't it? Because has he stopped the rot? I don't know.
To an extent, yeah, we're not conceding as many goals now, but it is a small sample size. It's 3 games.
It comes back to the question, doesn't it? Do we think another manager with that squad of players could be getting more out of them in terms of performance, in terms of results? I think so, yes. Based on how many games we played this season now? 10?
8.
Was it only 8?
8 in the Premier League.
Based on the eight games that we've seen so far this season, could another manager be getting a better performance out of them? Yes. How long is it before the board has to make that decision on it? And I think it comes back down to this, probably answering another quick clip here, it comes back down to this massive break in play, doesn't it? So, if a club is going to change their manager, they've got a kind of 4 or 5 week period to do it. I think he probably is. I think he is kind of managing for his job over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see. We'll see whether these 3 unbeaten turn into 6 or 7 unbeaten.
Okay. Right. Where should we go next? So still Max, given to the World Cup.
The badge.
Oh, the badge, of course. Yeah. Sorry, Anthony. They're the badge. Yeah. No one's seen it yet, or a select few people have seen it who go to these fan meetings and stuff. I've not seen it. You've not seen it, as far as I'm aware. Just the general principle though, changing the badge again. Do you care?
I do care because I think it represents Aston Villa, and it's on our shirts, it's on stadiums, it's on all the merchandise that people buy and all these kind of things. I just worry that, how soon are they talking about this badge coming in? The next season, isn't it? A badge is only as good as its last game to me. And if you bring your new badge in at a time where we're really crap, nobody's going to like the badge. I know you can't time these things. Okay, we'll do it when we win a trophy. So otherwise, badge workers would be out of work for badge designers would be out of work forever, wouldn't they? But
I don't think there's that much wrong with the current badge, to be honest.
What's all this stuff about lamps? that I've heard?
Yeah, there's 3, isn't there? There's a round badge that's similar to 82, but not the same. So whatever that means, a modernised version, I guess. Which I think, if it goes to a fan vote, that's what I win. A lamp, which I think is probably just a shield, like a shield design. I've seen a few kind of mock-ups on Twitter, but it references the lamp in some way potentially. I don't like the idea of that at all. And then the third one, I think, was just the lion, an 1874 underneath, or Aston Villa underneath, or something. So no kind of holder, circle, badge, whatever, just the lion, which I do like the idea of. But again, does that really work in the modern day? Like when I'm doing graphics and stuff and I have to do one with Spurs, I always think your badge looks so out of place compared to the rest. Like it's awkward, it doesn't fit properly. So it'll be round badge, and we move on. And if we're rubbish when it changes, like you said, people go now, like, oh, the Dr. Tony badge. People are going, oh, the Steven Gerrard badge. Who cares?
Yeah, well, listen,
games.
If we go with the lamps, then Gerrard's got to go. Because anybody tell you that you can't have lamps and Gerrard?
That's why you're asking me about it. Good stuff. Right. Let's move on. Max, give him to the World Cup.
I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts, really, because I was coming out of Ellen Road on Sunday and I heard a couple of people say, oh, that was worse than Southampton. And even when it went on Twitter after the game, not that that's the best barometer of the wider Villa, sort of opinions as a whole, but there's a lot of hysteria on there. And I was a little bit surprised because by any stretch, I haven't been Gerrard's biggest fan this season at all. I think there's a lot to be concerned about. But, for example, if Watkins scores at the end there to make it 1-0, do we all slam Gerrard and take it to the manager? I know at the end of the day, he didn't score and it ended 0-0 and Leeds had 10 men and we probably should have won that game, but I just thought the reaction was a little bit much, and I thought clean sheet, there's a little bit to build on there. I think you've got to give him till the World Cup and see sort of where we come after this massive October month, because there's a lot of games in October, a lot of winnable games, so see where we are after that. I don't think it's the right time to pull any triggers now. I just don't know. I think it was the reaction after the Leeds game was a little bit much for me. I think there was more positives than people maybe thought.
That's interesting, really, because Max asked 2 questions, but I split it in 2 because it was long. And I thought the second part that he asked kind of contradicted his first point, which is interesting.
What was his second part? Sacking before the World Cup?
No, not quite, but I can play the second one now if you want to, or do you want to speak about that first?
Let's speak about that.
Go on then.
Well, we've touched on that anyway, haven't we? Because the guy earlier was saying, wait until the positive guy earlier was saying, all these positive people are saying, wait till the World Cup.
It's a convenient kind of flashpoint moment in the season, isn't it? Where you've got 4 or 5 weeks without any league football. You can get a new man in and you can have 3 or 4 weeks of pre-season effectively training with whoever isn't at the World Cup. So it's a nice, convenient time to do it. But if we lost the next 3 in a row, I'd kind of be thinking, well, don't wait till the World Cup, just do it now.
Yeah, it's interesting the point that he was making about Leeds away, because obviously Max is home and away, so he's in the away end there. And I don't know, I've not spoken to anybody who was there about what the vibe was like in the away end. I think sometimes when we watch it on TV and we've got our phones and our laptops and our tablets sparked up, we can almost be sucked into, do you know what I mean? You're almost sucked into the sea of negativity. So I'm probably encouraged in a way that he was able to see more positives than the rest of it. And I suppose, there is that call for patience in a bit, that if you're playing your way out of a slump, you're not necessarily going to play your way out with 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 wins.
Yeah.
But I think Villa would be inclined to give Gerrard until the World Cup anyway. It's just what happens with some of those results. Forest is a massive game on Monday night. If go and lose there, that's a relegation rival who are down on their luck at the moment. And what does that, what are the optics of losing that game like? So I think if you're in the Villa boardroom, you desperately want to give him to the World Cup. A, because you want to prove that the man that you've appointed can get it right. And B, if you can't get it right, you've given yourself the best window to try and, recruit somebody new. So yeah, I've got I'm not in a massive clamour to see Gerrard get the sack. I would rather him win games and turn this around and, prove that those big positive sound bites when he first arrived, I thought he held himself and carried himself quite well. Prove that that's the Gerrard that we've got, rather than the one who's become a little bit mardy and gnarly and easily offended and that kind of thing, and almost kind of creating this bit of a disconnect between him and the fan base. I'd rather him have enough joy and enough success to try and repair that. But it massively depends on these next 3 or 4 weeks.
Football's a ruthless game, isn't it? Like you just say, it's the optics of losing to Man City, the optics of losing to Nottingham Forest. You know, how does that look to be the team that lost to Nottingham Forest? You know, you look at Bournemouth; they've won 2 games this season. Oh, one of them's against Aston Villa. Crystal Palace have won 1 game this season. Oh, that was against Aston Villa. Like, it doesn't look good, doesn't it? If you're coming out saying, "Oh, we want to be top half, pushing for European football, winning trophies," and you're the team's one symbol next to their W, it doesn't look good, does it? We're into the final 10 or so now, and a lot of these are shorter. I think we've got some of the long ones out of the way, which is convenient. So we'll go Mark buying a striker, which is the shortest at 7 seconds. It's just a nice, straightforward question. And Dave, highest/lowest moments.
Go Mark, first of all.
Okay.
If we were going to buy a striker in January transfer window, who do you think it should be, and what kind of budget do you think we'll have?
Over to you, Matt. For what it's worth, I don't think we'll buy a striker in January. So that's my answer.
Yeah, well, I can't really. I'm not allowed to talk about the one who's on the bench, am I? In case I'm accused of nepotism or something. You bitch. I don't know. You tell me who's available.
Well, that's the point. The only thing that you might see is somebody having a good World Cup, you know, like after a World Cup in the summer usually, and then they get a move to another club. But is somebody going to have a good World Cup in December and then get a January move to the Premier League? Or
you'd probably go for the new Ollie Watkins, wouldn't you? Probably go for Ivan Toney or something like that. But them selling to a Premier League rival is going to cost you an absolute fortune. And
I just don't see it happening basically in January. So I don't think it's worth having a list of names. Like someone in the comments there just said Mitrovic. Fulham aren't going to sell Mitrovic in the halfway through the season, although when he's their goal scorer. And if they do, what money are they going to want for him? 50 mil, 60 mil?
If you're paying that amount of money, what are you trying to get out of it? Because to me, you pay that big money if you think you're going to get to the next level. So if you're on the brink of, not even if you're on the brink of Europe, if you're on the brink of the Champions League, you probably pay that money to get you into the Champions League. If you're on the brink of going down, you probably pay that money to get you, to keep you up. I'm not sure a striker is the difference between us going down and staying up, to be honest. So I don't know why you'd invest that massive amount of money. And, you know, let's just say you've got a proven finisher who's on the bench. You can't get a look in at the moment. And, you know, I was cynical at the start of the season whether he was ready for the Premier League, whether he's a Premier League finisher. I don't think you can judge that until you see him on the pitch more than he is.
Are you on about Archer?
I am on about Archer, yeah.
I thought you were on about Ings for a second. I was going to say, he's not proven. Yeah, Ings, even Ings. I mean, surely there's somebody who's got to get something out of Ings at some point. We make out like he's finished at 31.
Yeah, he's not finished, mate. He's English.
Yeah, good. Oh, God. I could see the cogs whirring in your brain then try and think of a silly joke. Right, let's go. Should we go with Dave? Another short question?
Yeah, go on, Dave.
Go on, Dave.
Dave from the States here. Question. What has been your highest and lowest moments as a Villa supporter? Thanks for all you do. Up the Villa.
I love that one by Dave from the States here. I love that. Also, most of the people that sent
Was
these...
that you? Was that you doing an impression?
It wasn't me. Most of the ones that sent these started them by saying something like, "Hi guys, love the podcast, been watching it for so-and-so years, but I thought we've got to try and keep this as short as possible." So most people were really nice and kind about it. So thanks for that, first of all. I've just cut it all out of the episode. Highest moment supporting the club? Can you think of anything?
Before we get to that, I like where Dave says, he says question. It sounds a bit Beyonce-like. Have you heard it? It's question.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking it was more like Dwight from The Office, the US Office I was thinking of. Question. Yeah, I like that.
What was the question?
Your highest moment supporting the club and lowest point. I mean, there's 2 obvious answers here for me, so I'm going to get those out of the way.
Yeah, go on, go for it.
Relegation being the lowest moment, promotion being the highest. Not seeing us win a trophy. I can't just think of a random game, not beating the Blues or whatever. It's obviously always a high moment, but being at Wembley, getting promoted, that whole kind of what that meant, getting up. Yeah, brilliant. Obviously, lowest moment. I mean, yeah, you could pick out a couple of individual games with bad losses, Bradford in the League Cup and stuff like that. Even the League Cup final, you know, not having Vidic sent off and possibly winning some silverware 12 years ago now. Relegation, the culmination of 5 or 6 terrible years, is I can't think of a lower moment than
that. Highest moment would probably be the League Cup win over Man United in 1994, because it's the first time I actually saw Villa win anything. Although there's been so many, we used to stand down before it was rebuilt with seats. We used to be pretty on the front row of the whole end, and we'd be like involved in like the goal celebrations and stuff, and you'd see some great goals in the Ron Atkinson era, and Dwight York and Dalian and Dean Saunders scoring it. So brilliant moments in the Holt end generally, but one specific would be the League Cup win. I thought that was the time where we're going to start winning trophies regularly. The lowest moment, I don't know why this has popped into my head, but there's a Christmas Day, the Boxing Day game once, and I think we drew 2-2, and Zach Knight scored an equaliser against Arsenal. And this is really, really random. It's just where my head went. I'd got some really bad bug, but I still got to work it. So I parked at Villa. There's a car park near Villa Leisure Centre. I actually had to get out my car, and I was puking over the bonnet of my car before the game. And people must have thought, "Who's this idiot? You know, why is he driving if he's that drunk or whatever?" And he's throwing up over the side of his car. And then I went in and got my game head on. Did my work and stuff, and probably for once didn't take the most of Aston Villa's press room hospitality. And I was getting this work done, and then I felt really ill again, and I think I missed the equaliser, so I had to go. I was actually back in the box for the equaliser, and I had to piece it together and get my report done like a professional. You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I really wasn't. I've just Googled it. 26th of December 2008. Zach Knight scored an injury time as Villa hit back from 2-0 down to earn a draw to put them 4th in the table.
Exactly, it should have been a euphoric moment.
Yeah, 4th on Boxing Day. What a heady heights of 4th.
That's my lowest moment. Yeah, Villa going 4th.
Yeah, there's one here. Lowest moment for me was Di Matteo's last match, 2-0 defeat to Preston, which that led to a sacking, didn't it? So
yeah, I was at that, and he kept us waiting for ages, and in the rain. He had to go though. He had to go.
He's got to go, Frank. So he's got to go. We've had nothing like that, by the way. Like really kind of het up, kind of ranty stuff. I thought there'd be a few, but there isn't. Right, where do we want to go? Faizan, what is the vision? Or Ben, hypocrite?
Go for Faizan first of all. I am intrigued about Ben, but
okay.
All I just want to say is that I just feel quite disconnected with Villa. I don't really see the structure. I don't really see the pattern, the vision where Villa want to move forward. As Villa pre-Gerrard under Dean Smith were young players for the future, but now when they brought Gerrard in, he's come in and he said he wants players here and there. So Villa can win here and there now. However, you have Purslow coming out and saying Villa long-term work in progress. What is the direction and what are we doing? What are we moving forward? And also, all I want to talk about with Villa Gerrard's always said the play style is a work in progress, but it isn't really, because he just scrapped everything, gone back to basics, defensive football. That's not working on the style of play, because the style of play his belief is attacking fullbacks, getting into the box, overloads, pressing high up, but we're not doing that. So I don't see how you can do that from playing defensive football, how you working on it, because we're not really seeing anything. And right now I don't really see any direction with the club, where the club's moving forward.
I mean, again, I agree with most of the things Faizan said there, but depressing, isn't it? Not knowing where we're heading. No, not him, but the point that we kind of sit here and go, what are we doing? What is the vision? Coming out saying, the style of play is a work in progress. It's like, when are we going to get to see some progress? When are we going to get to see the fruits of our labour?
Yeah, he's nailed on. I mean, he's really interesting about the beyond the style of play, the wider vision of the club. What is this club trying to achieve now?
I don't know, really.
You know, it's. I think we touched upon this earlier slightly, didn't we? But if you are building for the here and now by getting, big name players with big reputations on big wages, then you expect to see a return quicker than we've seen it. You don't expect us to stand still or go backwards anyway. You expect to see some kind of progress. And I'm not sure. I think it leaves him in a really difficult position at the moment. And the likes of kind of Christian Purslow, when he has to go and speak to the Supporters Trust and explain this, I don't know how you can justify that almost that we are this kind of building for the future when the recruitment process seems to be saying differently, really. And in terms of the on the pitch stuff, I got to be careful about this, because you all know I've got a chip on my shoulder about Steve Bruce and the way it ended there. But this does seem very Steve Bruce and what it was like with Bruce under the Championship. In terms of we want success straight away, so we're gonna buy in for the here and now without worrying too much about the legacy for the future. And B, a very stale, sterile way of playing at times. And I don't blame managers for when they're up in when the pressure's on for going to a back to basics approach and trying to be hard to beat and playing your way back into confidence that way. But even Steve Bruce wasn't blessed with Coutinho and Buendia and Danny Ings and Leon Bailey and so on and so forth. So if you are a manager like Steven Gerrard who thinks he can manage at the very, very top of the English game, you've got to learn quickly. You've got to be able to assemble a squad that can do that, can be stubborn, can be hard to beat, can be really good off the ball, but they've got to offer a lot more creatively. They've got to offer a lot more creatively.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 left. Are you still all right for time?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, chippy tonight.
Don't really want to split this into two parts. Right, Ben, hypocrite, or 4-3-3 doesn't suit us from Stu.
Go Ben, hypocrite.
Okay. Buendia has looked by far our most creative player for a while now, and Coutinho seemingly always looks lost. Bailey is a bright spark, but looks a bit predictable playing on the right because he always cuts in. Would the best solution not be Buendia on the right, Bailey on the left, and to drop Coutinho? Gerrard said last season that Buendia needs to work on his goals and assists if he wants to start. Since then, Coutinho has continually played whilst not producing in the final third. So does that make Steven Gerrard a hypocrite? I'll tell you what, Ben, you've got some podcast work coming up with that kind of voice, I reckon. I'd actually forgotten I'd recorded that one, by the way.
You did have a velvety, smooth voice, Ben, to be honest. I was almost expecting you to be you, like in disguise as well, with your Jesus outfit on or something again.
Yeah. It's a fair point, though, I think, from what I can remember of it, of saying, kind of digging out Buendia, not digging him out, but kind of saying he needs to have a certain level of form, he needs to get more goals and assists, and then to have Philippe Coutinho still playing, and he's got 1 goal in 20 games or whatever. That is hypocritical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just worried about Villa complaining about your negative opinions, and you're saying, no, it was Ben.
I swear, somebody sent me that voice note. I swear, it just wasn't very good.
Sounded just like you, Dan. That was Ben.
Don't stitch me up.
Am I doing the next one? Say Gerrard out. We've got Mavis from Quinton.
There's one here from Tam.
Yeah, we've got Cat Mendry. What was the question? Is he a hypocrite because he's judging Buendia and Coutinho by different standards?
I think so.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think he's been deliberately hypocritical. I think he's trying to. I think there's a lot resting on Coutinho being a success for Gerrard, because I know we got him on a cut price deal, bargain for what his what Coutinho's CV should be worth. But I think he probably feels that he can, feels that he can treat Buendia, who's on his way up in the game, younger, more of a future in front of him, with harsher words and harsher treatment than he can Coutinho, who has got it comes with his big glowing reputation. Does it make him a hypocrite? I don't know. I think Gerrard's got his reasons for doing it. I don't necessarily agree with his reasons for doing it. I think you promote the player and you give more attention and more game time to the player who's going to give you the best chance of winning a football match. So I think it makes him wrong. I don't think it makes him a hypocrite, because I think he feels he's managing both those players in the right way. Does that make sense or not? I don't know whether I've answered that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Ben, if he exists, we'll tell you whether that was a good answer or not. Stu, 4-3-3 doesn't suit us, or Alex, Las Vegas Villains?
Oh, give me a bit of glitz and glamour. Go Las Vegas Villains.
This is a question I don't think you'll know the answer to, so good luck with this.
Villa fan over here in Miami, but I'm actually wanted to ask a question about this Las Vegas team. Are Villa going to be having their own MLS team, or are we just going to be connected to this Las Vegas team? Cheers, guys.
Do you know the answer? Good. Right. So my understanding of it is that 𝐲𝐮𝐫 and co, they will own the MLS team. Aston Villa as a football club won't own an MLS team, but the two owners will share both assets kind of thing. Much like Aston Villa don't own the Milwaukee Bucks because that's 𝐲𝐮𝐫's own investment. But whether it's like a feeder team or a sister team or whatever, and Villa can kind of swap players over and send out our youngsters on loan to America, or we can tap into the youth football of the US and bring them back over to the Premier League. I don't really know. It's like the City Group, isn't it? Man City's owners being invested in an Australian side, I think, somebody in America, possibly another European side or two as well. Having this kind of like big expansion of Manchester City as a group rather than Man City own those clubs. I think that's my rough understanding of it, but I don't really know if that's true or not.
I haven't got a clue, mate, and this is to my ignorance. I was hoping I thought it was going to be like a question about Celine Dion's residency or something in Vegas. I didn't realise it's going to be I don't know. I mean, what's your feelings about chairman and owners having dual interests?
I don't really mind, to be honest, as long as if they're not going to suddenly say, "Oh, well, we can't afford to bankroll Aston Villa's 100 million transfer window because we've got to spend 50 on LA Villains to get them, some retiring Premier League player on massive wages to finish their career over there for the publicity." There might be a bit of that happening. Maybe like Tyrone Mings will go over there when he's 35 on a big kind of what they call the star player or whatever, the MVP. As long as it doesn't affect Aston Villa and their Premier League and European ambitions eventually down the line, I don't really care, to be honest. I mean, this LA thing is going to be a couple of years away. I think the aim was for the 2026 World Cup, so it's 4 years away at least.
Is what's the name of the guy who asked the question?
Alex, I think, but I've deleted it, so I don't know.
Could we go over there and discuss it? He's in Miami, wasn't he? He said that Alex was. Should we go over there and discuss it further?
Okay, good. Put that in the diary and stick that on expenses. It was Alex. Sorry, I haven't deleted it. Let's get rid of that now. Stu, 433 doesn't suit us. I think that's the longest one left. Or Matthew, encouraging signs. 2 long ones to get out of the way.
Go 433 doesn't suit us.
The first area where I feel we're kind of falling down is I'm just not a huge fan of our formation, the 4-3-3. We're extremely narrow. It doesn't quite suit Coutinho. I know he's been better these last few games, but obviously we haven't seen the Coutinho that we'd all hoped for. And that in itself is keeping Emi Buendia out of the team, who, personally, I really, really rate and want to see starting. Bailey, I just don't think he's good enough. I understand why he does sometimes get into the team. He brings that pace, but for me, I just haven't seen it, guys. I just haven't seen enough from him when he plays. So the other issue with the 4-3-3, obviously, is we're reliant on Ollie Watkins. Would have loved to have seen him taken off against Leeds. He works himself into the ground, not knocking his work rate at all, but he just had a real off day, didn't he? And we're looking to make that change. But again, I don't think Danny Ings suits the 4-3-3. He can't play on that lone striker. And Danny Ings really does feel like a square peg in a round hole. Yeah, we don't seem to know our best formation. We don't seem to know our best team. There's people being blocked out, and it just feels a bit messy at the moment. So I suppose my question to you guys is, does Gerrard know his best side yet? And is that acceptable? Having had 12 months in the job, 2 transfer windows and a lot of money to spend. So look forward to hearing your
Thoughts?
I thought he was very eloquent. I'm not sure I can match him on that, to be honest. It's the big unanswered question, isn't it? How do you get those front players functioning? And I don't know the answer. And I don't think Steven Gerrard does know the answer. And, without passing the buck too much to Gerrard, I think it's more on him to try and find the answer than it is for me to find the answer. But was it Stu? Sorry, the guy Stu's right that I don't know whether it's getting I don't know whether what we're doing is getting the best out of any of those players in the advanced areas at the moment. It's. I think because we don't have any natural width. I think Coutinho or Buendia could play as a decent 10, but are we getting enough? Are we getting enough width in the wide areas? I don't know, mate. It just frustrates me a little bit that we're having this conversation 12 months on. This is not a manager who's just arrived. He's had it. That fabled pre-season that we told is going to be the route to solve. He's the source of solving everything. Doesn't seem to have done anything like that, does it? And what's your take? I'm waffling a bit here. What's your take, Dan?
I mean, the injuries to Carlos and Kamara won't have helped. I think if they were still both playing now and Carlos and Mings had formed a good partnership, that I think would be a lot more steady. I think I saw something yesterday that Villa used 18 or 19 players, which is one of the highest in the league, of having to change the side so many times, which is due to injury. We played 4 different centre-half partnerships, didn't we, over 4 or 5 games over the first few games. But yeah, you're right. The forward players is the problem. There's a comment here from Ravi who says we're not playing a 4-3-3. It's a Christmas tree. It's a 4-3-2-1, isn't it? Really, a narrow kind of triangle like that leads forward to Watkins on his own. Watkins might drift out right, but there's no one to get into the box after him. It's just quality, though, isn't it? It's quality in those positions is the problem. But the players should have the quality to do better than they are. I've said that for a long time. All of a sudden saying these are bad players, but it's just the system isn't quite right. I don't know who it suits. I think anyone who scored for Villa this season has only scored 1 goal. So it's not like we're going, well, we've still got Benteke. He scored 6 goals this season. If he gets injured, we're in trouble here. Like, there's no one player that you stand out and go, well, he's carrying us at the moment. They're all just not doing enough combined as a team.
Well, half of me thinks, but this is, like I say, you need better tacticians than me. Half of me thinks, whoever it is, if it's Watkins or if it's Ings, can you play your number 10 really quite closely up to them? So you're effectively playing a 4-4-1-1, or you're playing a 4-4-2, but it's not your 2 strikers in Ings and Watkins. It's Watkins and Buendia, or it's Ings and Coutinho, or vice versa. But in effect, that's a 4-3-3 anyway, isn't it? Because the problem is, if you're doing that, is your middleman in your I'm trying to get my words out here, because to me, you need more than one striker occupying your potentially 4 or 3 opposition centre halves. So you need to play somebody further up. So you do need 2 attacking players up front. But how are they being serviced at the moment? Because
they are. It's weird, isn't it? Because we did make a few chances against Leeds, and we made more than one chance in the Southampton game. We only won 1-0. If we did have beat Leeds 2-0 on Monday because Watkins scored and Conter scores or whatever, you go, oh, nothing to worry about really. We've created 6 decent chances. We won 2-0. Move on. But because we can't finish our dinner, you do worry that, well, if we do get the service, Watkins might need 3 great balls from Buendia before he even scores one. And if Buendia gets man marked or whatever, and he's out of the game and he can't supply Watkins anyway, you go, well, where's the creativity come from after that? Conter going down at right back, Ashley Young at left back. It's not the quality I expected to see after 3 or 4 years back in the Premier League. Put it that way.
No, it's, like I say, I'm not your man for formations really, but we've spoken before, haven't we, about should Villa go to a kind of 3-5-2, and does that give you your proper width?
I actually think that suits our first strong 11 better, a 3-5-2. I'm always concerned when a manager goes 3-5-2 because you think, just kind of batten down the hatches and it's more like a 5 at the back than anything. But Gerrard was saying about maybe having to go to 3 at the back for injuries. If we get another injury, we might need to do that. I actually think it suits our strongest 11 better. People like Dean and Cash would suit a 3 at the back. Having 2 strikers up there, or like you said, Buendia and Watkins as a 2 off each other, or Coutinho behind Archer and Ings. There was options there then.
I would like to see it with 2 advanced strikers, but one of them, maybe an old-fashioned, thinking back to the old Dalian and Dino days and stuff like that. Or I'd like to see what that very advanced 2 would be like if it was a Watkins and Coutinho playing very, very close to him, or Buendia playing close to him. Or I don't know. I can't remember what the question was, but I'm sure we've waffled enough around the edges of it.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have Let's go with Max's one again because he's the only one who's done 2 because it was so long. This one is called Gerrard Doesn't Get It.
Another question from me. There's been a lot of talk this week about the relationship between the fan base and the club itself, and it not being what it quite used to be. Because under Dean Smith, we had a lovely, genuine, relatable fella in charge of the club. We had a captain who was a fan of the club and things like that. But now that seems to have disappeared in terms of the manager seeming like he has a little bit of an ego on him, biting journalists' heads off, and just little things like that have seemed to mount up over the last 12 months or so. Do you think that matters? Do you think the owners will look at that personally, will look at that as something that actually matters to them as well? Because for me, it really, really does, because a lot of people have talked about the disconnect they feel right now between themselves and the club, and that's a real shame, because I think that was one of the main things that we had under the previous manager and the previous regime. So I think that's really important, and right now that's one of the main reasons why fans are struggling to warm to Steven Gerrard, because I can't see him buying into Aston Villa. I don't think he gets it, and that's not going to do any favours for him, because the fan base can't warm to him at all, because it's nearly been a year now, and I'd say the majority of fans really haven't warmed to him.
Sounds like the Max Stokes household is friends of the family of the Dean Smith household, don't you think? A lovely, relatable, genuine man.
I mean, the thing is, Max Stokes getting 2 questions. I mean, just trying to boost his exposure by getting onto our platform. It's outrageous.
Shameful.
If he wants to donate some subscribers as well, that'd be much appreciated. No, I think Max is nailed on there with Gerrard. I don't think. Again, it's these things when if things aren't happening particularly brilliantly on the football pitch, we look around the edges for things, and we want somebody who gets us, and we want somebody who understands what Aston Villa means. And I'm not sure Gerrard would ever properly have that connection with a club other than Liverpool, to be honest. So I don't think he's going to be that giving of it. But it doesn't reflect well, does it? Do you know what I mean? We spoke about it when he disappeared down the tunnel after a couple of those defeats and didn't acknowledge the away fans and stuff like that. He's got a very hard act to follow, hasn't he? In terms of Dean Smith, because Dean Smith was not only successful in restoring Villa to the Premier League, sweep the steps of the Holt End, Brummie, Villa through and through. He was also a very, very warm, compassionate, kind of ambassadorial fella. So to follow that was going to be impossible. The only way Steven Gerrard could follow that was by outperforming Dean Smith on the pitch. So I don't think that's ever going to come.
Because whilst I agree with everything you just said, none of that would be relevant if Steven Gerrard got us in 4th place at the moment.
Exactly.
It's about the football, and when the football isn't going well, you go, what's another stick I can beat this guy with? Yeah. I don't like him anyway. The football's not great. He walked down the tunnel early, bash. He said something to a journalist I didn't like, bash. It's none of it really matters.
At the point, it can be a stick to beat him, and it would be pretty crap mitigation, but it could be a bit of good. It could be a bit of mitigation that says, well, listen, he's going through a hard time, but look how giving he was there. Look at that.
Yeah.
And listen, he does do some of those things. I've seen some really brilliant things when he's, with sick kids in, hospitals. There was the guy that he met in the States. Not Australia. The kind of Villa fan, young Aston, I think he was, and stuff like that. But he's a different kind of personality. And if you're Gerrard and you are a bit wary that this is the first tough test that you've had, and, people are comparing you unfavourably to the guy who everybody loved beforehand, is he suddenly, does he think, well, do I spend my time working on my positive PR, or do I spend my time working on my forward line to try and get them scoring goals? And I don't know, I just feel that he's been a little bit, we had those joke at the start of the thing, wasn't I, about, I think he had a bit of edgy banter, shall we say, with Ash Priest, our colleague, when he was asking him about Cameron Archer last week. And I don't know, and people, there's somebody on Twitter who responded to me saying, we don't know kind of what pressure these people are under. It's magnified, there's so much pressure on them. That's fine, but they don't know kind of what pressures we're under in terms, you know what I mean? The working man's under. So I think if you can't be kind of civil to people, I don't expect them to be kind of cuddly and warm and, you're either one type of personality or not. But to me, when the pressure comes along, you've still got to be able to deal with it. You're still going to be able to deal with people in a respectful way. For example, if Dean Smith, if Steven Gerrard, if the game at Leeds at the weekend, if Jamie Carragher's there and they're pulling him pitch side to ask a question, and Jamie Carragher asks that same question about Cameron Archer, does Steven Gerrard give him the same response? No. So I think you've got to be fair. You've got to treat people.
That's decent. Yeah, that's a decent point.
You've got to treat people with respect because, other people are doing their jobs under difficult circumstances as well. And I think that's where it gets me. You've got to just be human. You don't need to be you don't need to be Mother Teresa. You don't need to be Dean Smith. You just got to be human.
Yeah, I feel that's slightly harsh on Gerrard. He's not this robot monster who, just goes around being nasty to people all the time. But I get the point that Max originally raised there about the warmthness of it. I think Gerrard mentioned in an interview he did with Gary Neville on the overlap about like how I've not been to Birmingham. I popped in once for 5 minutes to buy a jumper or whatever, and that was it. And that's probably on the day he had his interview or something. Like he hasn't got that connection walking around. And you do wonder. And I've just said, is any of that really relevant anyway? Does it matter that Steven Gerrard doesn't pop into Birmingham for a coffee? Obviously not. But if you're not kind of actively willing to connect with your employer effectively and the 42,000 people that go there every week and the hundreds of thousands of people around the world or millions or whatever it would be, that people that support the club, you kind of think, are you all in, as you keep saying, or is that like a nice soundbite? I don't know what the point is there, to be honest, so we should probably just move on.
I think just finally for me on that, I think it gives credence to the idea, which I thought he did very well to talk down when he first signed, that this wasn't a stepping stone. I think without that connection, it feels more like a stepping stone.
But I mean, none of that's relevant because he's not going to get the Liverpool job now, as things stand right at this second, because he's not good enough to be Aston Villa manager at the moment with 8 points, 8 games. So he won't get plucked by Liverpool at this point. So focus on Villa being very, very good before you think about your next move.
Yeah, like I said, I don't. I've only met Steven Gerrard once, and that was a football writers' dinner in London about 15 years ago, and he very kindly signed the back of a serviette for my little glory-hunted Liverpool supporting nephew. So I can only speak as I find. I only see the bits that everybody else sees on the television. This is the first Villa manager since Martin O'Neill, I would say, that I haven't met in a Villa manager capacity before. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of warmth or otherwise he gives. I only see the same bits that we do. But like I said, he's got a very, very difficult, hard act to follow in terms of the connection that we had. I don't think we'll ever have that connection again with another manager.
And like I said before, I don't really think that matters if the team performs well. I don't want to get too hung up on you've got to have a fan who's your manager and stuff. But that was a nice kind of manufactured, got promoted. Luke Roper's doing the kits, Grealish is the captain. It was all very nice and cosy and warm, wasn't it? And now this is totally opposite of that. And if we're winning games, I don't think we'd be that bothered about it, but we're not, so we are. Right, a few more. Well, let's go positive this time. Let's go another Matt. He says, Gerrard is still the man.
Ings and Watkins are a waste of time. Bring back Tammy, he'll bang in the goals. The only new players we've added to the squad is Carlos and Kamara. Both are injured, so we need new replacements. We need to think big. Plus, I think Gerrard's still the man. We just need to give him the backing and get the players in. Up the Villa.
Now, I should just say there, Gerrard is still the man was the title. I forgot that started the way it did. And when that one came through, that was the first one where I thought, is this actually a Villa fan? Or is this somebody trying to be on the wind up a little bit? I don't know whether I'm just being a little bit sceptical.
I liked him. I thought he got a really good manner about him there. I thought it made me actually kind of want to go with him and say, listen,
I think my point, we were saying thumbs up or thumbs down before. I'd say it's kind of in the middle towards thumbs down because he has had money. He has been able to buy the players he wanted. One of the callers said earlier about he's had a year almost. He's had a pre-season. He's had 2 transfer windows. He's had X amount of million spent. So kind of inclined to go, well, we have backed him.
Yeah, I think the point that he makes about the squad not being that much different to last season because we've only added 2 players who have been injured is a point. But that does neglect the fact that he signed Coutinho, Luke Dean and Caleb Chambers last season. So he has had chance to impact that squad. Is he still the man? Convince us. Do you know what I mean? You know, if Gerrard could do as good a job in the next 6 weeks of convincing us as Matt has done with his 30 seconds there, do you know what I mean? I'd say give Matt the job until the end of the season.
Well, I'd take Tammy Abraham. I agree with that point, but I don't agree that Watkins and Ings are a waste of space. That's not the phrase I would use. Could do better. Right, let's go on to the positive one and get the longest one out of the way. This is a video as well. I think this guy was from America. Matthew, encouraging signs for this one. Look out for the big
Matthews on there?
I know everyone is a Ben or a Matthew. I swear people just make up the names on these to keep anonymous. Keep an eye out for the big fish or whatever it is in the background this time.
You know, I started rooting for the Villa back in 2019. Me and my friend just wanted to pick a Premier League team, and we didn't want to pick a front runner. So we decided that Villa had great history, and we wanted to, go with a team that was getting back from relegation and had an exciting player in Grealish. So that's why we picked the Villa. So new fan, I've been loving the podcast. Love what you guys have to say. My question is, I feel like the team has come really far in just a few years since relegation. But the attitude around the club with the fan base seems pretty dismal. Do you think that this is something that's just specific to Aston Villa, or do you think maybe it's something that's common for most football fans in the UK to feel that their team should be overperforming and doing better than they are? There just seems to be a certain level of fatalism within the fan group, whether it's bashing on Mings the last couple years. Now I think people have moved on to hating on McGinn for whatever reason. I think there's actually a lot for us to be happy about. Of course, we're not where we want to be, but I feel like we're seeing encouraging signs. And yeah, I'm just curious to see if you guys think that the fan base is overly pessimistic, or is that not the case in your opinions? So cheers from Los Angeles. Peace out.
Now, I included this one, and to be fair, I included everyone that sent one out. I don't think I've missed anyone out. But I like that one because it's a different perspective, something we're not used to. Someone that's only supported the club for 3 or 4 years, and to go from getting promoted and now to be where we are, we have come a long way. And it's just a different perspective to see that, because we all just go, oh, well, we've had 10 years of rubbish. But this guy's gone, I picked that team, I followed them, they've done pretty well. We're not going through a decent spot at the moment, but that's okay. We can get better. I thought that was a quite interesting look at it.
You distracted me, didn't you, by telling me to look at the fish. I've seen that marlin or whatever it is about to kind of take his ear off, and I'm thinking, no, it is interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know whether Matthew's had the joy of coming over and watching Villa, because I think if he was at Villa Park,
COVID would have put paid to that probably if he'd only been supporting us since 2019.
Yeah, I think he'd see a different vibe to Villa Park, even in this kind of bleak moaning period, to the one he's probably seen on social media and fan sites and the general media as well. But I think I think that's the Brummie's prerogative. I think to tut and want more, and it's a football fan's prerogative as well. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I'm not saying, oh, new fan, you don't know. If you'd been here longer, you'd understand. But I suppose I kind of am saying that as well, because, we've had so many false starts and false dawns that I'm sure Matthew would have read up on his history that we won the European Cup in 1982. And we actually thought that cemented our place amongst the higher echelons of English football and European football, and then it didn't. And then we had, we've had false dawns under when we've gone close to the title under Graham Taylor and Ron Atkinson, and Brian Little's kept us in the top part of the. I don't think he needs this entire history lesson from me, but it's. Are we over expectant? I think that was one of the things he said, that we potentially we're expecting too much now. Are we expecting? Are we a third year or fourth year back in the Prem now?
We got promoted in the summer of 2019, so 1920, 2021, 21-22, 22-23. So this is our fourth season back.
So fourth season, is he expecting too much?
No, because I think you just said get promoted, stay up, consolidate, top half, Europe. I think we're talking about 5-year plan and stuff. I think year 4 or probably year 3 is on the fringes of European football. And we're sat here going, we finished 14th last year. We don't know what direction we're going in. We don't know what tactics are our best ones. We don't know who our best players are. And the best case scenario is the manager gets 6 weeks to stop being negative and turn it around. That's not a great position to be in after 4 years back in the Premier League.
So I think it's that really. I think it's a case of us being stung or being burned so many times before, just when we think we're on the brink of something. And in terms of scapegoats, that's not an Aston Villa thing. There's
it's class everywhere.
Although there used to be a column in Heroes and Villains. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but there used to be a column in Heroes and Villains fanzine that would pick out a different scapegoat every month or every couple of months when the magazine was out, and he never ran dry. He'd always got an example. So we are good at throwing somebody under the bus. But I think that'd be the same with any football club, and we've said, haven't you? Somebody's always flavour of the month. The best player's always the one who's not in the team, and that kind of thing. But no, it'd be good. I'm delighted. Birmingham City fans will always wind us up that our fan base doesn't come from Birmingham, that it comes from around the world. I actually find it a massive source of pride that our fan base does come from Birmingham and does come from around the world. So I don't want people like faraway fans like Matthew to be disillusioned and think, well, I've nailed my colours to the mast of Aston Villa and I'm surrounded by a bunch of miserable gits because it's a great club. You've made a great choice to follow Villa. And I hope that one day, if you have, I don't mean to sound patronising because maybe you have already been over, but if you haven't, come over if you can, if the opportunity presents itself, and you'll see a Villa Park that even when we're going through lean times, is more vibrant, more positive, than some of the moodiness that you see from me and Dan on here, and a lot of the kind of moodiness and negativity that sometimes can infect social media. But what was the question?
No, I think you summed it up nicely there. Our message to Matthew will be: if you are, trying to stay positive and keep spirits up, etc., I would turn the podcast off now, to be honest, because the next 5 or the last 5 are all negative, Gerrard out, etc., etc. They're all quite short, so I'm inclined to play all of them in one go, to be honest. But we'll still go one by one. I even know that I've recorded one of these, so I'll get that out of the way first, so we don't end this podcast with me voicing over someone else. This doesn't look good for me. This is another Ben. I'm sure I voiced this one over, but I swear to God, this was somebody else. Let's see if this is the right one. Aston Villa don't really have a plan at the moment. We're going off the cuff, and it's very boring football. Gerrard's changed it to a pragmatic style because we started so poorly, and it's just boring to watch. We don't seem to have a plan from game to game. It's just, let's just guess and see what happens. In the final third, we're not showing any quality, even though we do have quality players on paper. I feel like we're just prolonging the inevitable at this point, and Gerrard will be sacked sooner rather than later. We're set up at the moment to save Gerrard's job, not to Aston Villa's benefit in the long term. Just to clarify, that was Ben's comments, not mine. Just to clarify. But the last point, I think, is an interesting point about being set up to save Steven Gerrard's job rather than to the long-term benefit of Aston Villa, that you can kind of look at Gerrard's kind of turning it around a little bit at the moment because he's back to the wall, defend, clean sheet, and that looks good for him to be able to turn it around. But it doesn't necessarily mean the best for Aston Villa long-term to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, we're chucking away the last couple of years of progress and signing young players and selling them on. We're going to go ready-made players, 29, 30, big wages because we want to win now, and that's not quite worked either.
Yeah, I think it's valid points. Ben Dan as you know,
doesn't look good, does it?
It really is interesting, isn't it? Is this more to keep Gerrard's career trajectory going than to get Aston Villa in the right place? Now, the sweet spot would be that both those things happen, but it is pretty. I don't know. I'll probably only go on the basis. I actually enjoyed the Man City game, and although we were camping and defending for most of it, I still thought there was enough glimmers of entertainment. Agreed. Southampton was a pretty dull experience for everybody involved. The Leeds game probably created more than we could give us credit for, but was still pretty flat. So it is dull and it is tedious, and it's an interesting question which we'll never be able to answer. But would a manager who wasn't Steven Gerrard, who wasn't a name, who the CEO hadn't tied himself quite as closely to, would he be afforded this same kind of spell? I don't know.
We don't know for sure that Steven Gerrard will be afforded that kind of spell yet. He's not hit the 10 games that Dean Smith was sacked over in his last season.
Yeah.
He's got Forest, I think it's Chelsea after that. So let's say we drew to Forest and lost to Chelsea. You might go, maybe it's time to go now. So we're not going to give Gerrard the benefit of the doubt. If Gerrard got the whole season this season regardless, and we finished 17th, and you go, why is he still here? I think then you could say, is he got kind of a bit of favouritism from Purslow? But at the moment, if he's sacked after 10 games, then he's had the same ride that Dean Smith had.
Yeah. Go on, play another one.
Right. Somebody else to speak instead of me. I'm pretty sure these are all, I'm sure I only did two. There's one that I don't agree with technically, but it raises an interesting point, so I'll save that. From Ryan. Actually, no, you could choose. From Ryan, if not Gerrard, who? Or from Darren, delaying the inevitable.
Go for Darren, first of all, because I think the one will probably follow the other.
Okay.
Steven Gerrard's been in charge now for around 11 months. He was put in there by Mr. Purslow, is Purslow's man. Are we delaying the inevitable with the current run of form that we've had in getting rid of this guy, or do we persist with him? I'd say that the whole of this season's been a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. I'd like to think we'd be performing better by now. He's had a good chance. So, how long are we going to stay with him? That's my question.
Do you want to just play the next one? Because they do lead into each other.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, this is Ryan.
If Aston Villa were to change managers, first of all, everyone mentions Poch, but what other options are there? And no one seems to like the playing style of Aston Villa at the moment. If we did bring in Poch, for example, what playing style would he implement onto our squad? And how would he best use the players that we've currently got without having to do another £200-300 million overhaul?
I'll put those two next to each other because I don't really know what else we can add to that. I think Ryan answers Darren there that if you do sack Gerrard, and if it isn't Pochettino, if it is he going to get more out of the players? Now, like you said earlier, and I agree, I suspect yes. But what if 12 months down the line we're going, Pochettino should be doing better here? I mean, every managerial appointment is a risk, but it's a fair point, I think.
Yeah, I like the idea of Ryan answering and Daniel or whatever. We can just play this and we can just go for a pint or something and just let them sort it out amongst themselves. I think it possibly is, to answer the first point, I think it possibly is delaying the inevitable. I think we probably discussed this on the previous one as well. I think it comes back to the point, do I think that Steven Gerrard can turn this situation fairly quickly into a situation where Villa are not looking over the shoulders at relegation, but can advance up that league to be challenging for Europe? I don't have much faith that can happen, and I would be delighted to be proved wrong on it, but I don't have much faith. So if that is the case, and our ambitions are to be in Europe sooner rather than later, then yes, by sticking with him, we are delaying the inevitable. In terms of who replaces him, we see the usual names. I don't think Pochettino would come. I don't. Maybe that's me being negative Brummy, playing down the size of this job and this challenge and this opportunity. I'm not sure he would do.
I don't think it's a point of him not coming because he's too big for the job in terms of Spurs, PSG. He's waiting for a Chelsea or a Man U or whoever. I would almost look at it and go, I don't know if I fancy going in there and trying to fix what's going wrong there. Is it a horse and chalice kind of thing?
I think it might be a bit of both. I think he probably would hang on for a Champions League ready job somewhere in Europe, wherever that might be. Equally, I don't think he'd want to. What's in it? It's what's in it for me. How do I progress my career here? Gerrard's finding that. How do I progress my career here? Because it's difficult, isn't it? Because if Pochettino came in, saved Aston Villa's season, and turned Aston Villa into, let's say Villa managed to sneak through the back door into one of the European competitions. I don't mean the Champions League. Would his CV, and that would be a remarkable job given what we've seen. And I know we've still got a good squad of players, but if he did that, if he was appointed tomorrow and he was able to get Villa into European football this season through the back door, would his CV look any better than it already does?
Yeah, it's still success, isn't it? It's better than taking a Villa job and finishing 11th and going, oh, he wasn't really that good, which is a realistic possibility.
But on his list of achievements, would he put that? Where would he, if that was his literally an actual CV? Where would he put it?
Well, it obviously be at the bottom, wouldn't it?
Chronologically.
But what's the point of that? He's got to take a job somewhere, and the big jobs don't just open up and go, well, you've been out of work for X amount of time. Here you go. Come and manage here. I still think he's got to earn the right to get a job like that, to be honest.
I don't know. But in terms of other options, I mean, I've said before, and I've said it kind of almost like, can you speak through your fingers? I've said it kind of almost saying
on the sofa.
Yeah, I don't want to say this in case I leave myself open to it. I'd try Brendan Rodgers in there.
Yeah, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, didn't we? When we thought Gerrard might have been sacked after a defeat or something, we said who could it be, and we said, not going quite well at Leicester. Maybe Rodgers could do a job. I agree. I think that's more likely. But again, depending on when things happen, if we say, well, Gerrard's got to the World Cup break, but Rodgers is sacked this weekend, do you then make the decision yourself to get Rodgers in? It's a weird situation. Me and John spoke about it yesterday about being on this knife edge of, if we win a game, you think, well, he's safe now for this amount of time. And if you draw or you lose, you're thinking, well, we could be seeing a corner flag any moment. It could literally be any time. And I don't really like that atmosphere.
No, and it is a little bit of a game of strategy, isn't it? Do you sack your manager for a couple of reasons, don't you? Well, you sack your manager either because you've fallen out with him on a personal level in terms of boardroom, and you sack them because results are so bad, or you sack them because results aren't quite that bad, but there's an opportunity to get somebody in who can be better. I think we're going into the territory of the final part at the moment. Now, results 3 weeks ago were pretty bad. We're at the stage now where we've seen a little bit of an improvement on it, but we're also at the stage where the window to make that mid-season change, listen, it's a season unlike any other in terms of having that big, long window at it. I think we're venturing into that territory now. I think it'd be remiss of Villa and the board and Christian Purslow and I've got his name now, your man Johan, if he's part, I'm not sure whether he would, but if he's part of the recruitment committee for managers, it'd be remiss of them not to be doing their due diligence properly now.
Yeah, for sure.
That might be a little bit disrespectful in terms of...
I'd have been doing that for the summer if I was in that position, just as a contingency plan. If it doesn't start well, we need to be prepared.
I think it's probably part of football clubs' contingency plans. Anyway, most top football clubs will have that built into them. But I think we are in that territory now that Gerrard, there's enough doubts about Gerrard that Villa should be seeking out. Listen, still give Gerrard the next month or so to try and turn this around and trying to bring some energy and cohesion and a plan back into it, but need to be having a serious look around what's out there.
Yeah, agreed. This one, I don't fully agree with what Andrew's saying, but it kind of branches off into another point that I saw elsewhere, so I'll clarify that in a sec. But this is Andrew.
We're doing this live, by the way.
We're live, yeah.
It's not going live it's going live on social at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Is people still watching this after 90 minutes?
Yeah, there's 200 people still. There's been 200 consistently ages.
Is there nothing on the telly?
They'll all leave. Yeah, we're live, by the way. Good job you didn't go mental.
Oh no, I'm far too professional to.
No, of course, yeah. Okay, yes, we're live. The people calling in aren't live. Do you understand?
Oh no,
okay,
yeah, I get that bit.
Yeah, good. All right, this is Andrew, like this podcast with dull as dishwater.
Maybe the Aston Villa players that we've currently got, the current crop, have really, really low IQs. I'm wondering whether they're struggling to put into practice Gerrard's game plan and formational tactics. Maybe they're just dull as dishwater. What does Gerrard do then?
I saw you laughing through that, and it is quite funny. I think I'll text back saying that made me laugh. But I don't agree with the point. I don't think the players are thick, basically. I don't agree with that. You might disagree. A couple of people saying there's nothing on TV and this is better than The Chase, which, yeah, fair enough. Thank you. The point is, I saw a video on Twitter yesterday with a podcast that Thierry Henry was on. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, so they were talking. It was another ex-player. I don't know who that was, but they were saying about there was a moment in training where Henry was playing up front and he was saying, turn, swivel, play me through, I'll score. that was the drill kind of thing. And they were saying, no, it's too tight. I can't turn. Like the angle isn't there, or whatever. And Thierry Henry's going, no, come on, no, it's easy, basically. So he picks up the ball, walks back to halfway on, or wherever it is, does a roulette, plays it through to whoever's up front. They score, and he goes, look, easy, and walk on. And they're all looking at him like amazed, like this bit of magic they pulled out. So I told it wasn't too tight. And there's a kind of thread underneath that saying about when these ex-players become managers and it doesn't work out, maybe it's just that they see the game differently. And it's not the players are thick or anything. But if Gerrard sees it on a different level and can't kind of put that down onto a tactics board for the players to understand it because he just sees the game when he's played it at an elite level, maybe that's where the kind of confusion comes in, and that's why his assistant is so important. So you can say to Michael Beale, look, put this into layman's terms for them.
You can't say to Michael Beale anymore. But
exactly, I know, but before they got that connection, so he's now having to say that to Critchley, and they haven't got that connection yet. So maybe that's where the teething problems come from. That Gerrard can't get it across to Critchley yet for him to get across to the players, because Gerrard was such an elite player and played it on a different wavelength that John McGinn, Ollie Watkins, Tyrone Mings, whoever can't relate to it in the same way that he does. There's a bit of a tenuous point from Andrew's original point, but that's what I thought.
But these players have got through the stages of football. They're playing in the Premier League, and is Steven Gerrard such a cute tactician that he's asking something that their managers previously wouldn't have asked? I don't think that's. Because
we're not doing anything revolutionary, are we?
Well, I don't think so. And like I say, unless it's lost in translation, and he's asking him to do stuff that is revolutionary, and they can't do it, and they're serving up Dulles dishwater football. I don't know. Is Gerrard overcomplicating it? I don't know. Is that why he's gone back to basics? Possibly, but I don't know. What's the question? Are they thick?
Are they thick? Which I don't agree with, because they're Premier League footballers. It's a simple game, isn't it? Put the ball in the back of the net. Like, it's why overcomplicated. But that Henry thing I saw yesterday, it all kind of linked together as maybe they are just on a different level and they see things differently, and that's why good managers don't necessarily make good managers. Good players don't necessarily make good managers. Long day. This is probably the longest podcast we've done, by the way. It's like a chatty one, not an interview. So thanks everyone for sticking with us.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it's a fact of the matter that the players are thick. It may be a matter that the manager needs to find new ways to get his ideas across to them, and it may be the fact that the ideas haven't been consistent, and he's not been able to get that clear strategy in place. But again, we can probably only really test this when we've got a new manager managing that group of players.
Yeah. And the last one from Kieran, you got no choice whether you want this or not. It's called Gerrard Got Found Out. Like I said, the last end of the podcast has been more negative than the middle section. So Kieran can take it away to end the podcast.
For me, it's not about his coaching off the pitch. It's his on-pitch tactics. I don't know what the decision-making is, but as you've talked about on the podcast, he does like-for-like swaps, but then he doesn't seem to ever change formation. He'll change his players around constantly. He'll change his attacking formation in terms of the 2-10s, one up front. But what is actually happening to change the game? Who's that player who comes on, changes the system, and moves us forward up the pitch? Because all I seem to see is just literally same again and again and again. And I'm sorry, but Dean Smith had more tactical nous for me. And I really did enjoy Gerrard when he first came in, but the tactics that he was showing then were surprising to the Premier League. It shocked a lot of people. But then once they studied it, we got found out, and he doesn't have anything else. Be interested to hear your points, and keep up the good work, lads. Up the Villa.
Right, what do you make of Kieran's last point then?
Well, just before I address that, that picture that you've put there, is that a weird perspective? It looks like the tunnel's on the halfway line.
I don't know. It's from the corner, isn't it? I don't know what picture I've used. The original. Doesn't matter, really.
No, just me stalling while I was thinking about how to answer Kieran. I don't know. Were the tactics that he started with so earth-shattering to begin with, or was it just that it was freshness and energy about it? I don't know. I mean, I can't. People in the comments will have numerous examples because they'll have better memories than me. I can't even remember as recently as Sunday's game. But how many times have his in-game substitutions really made a difference?
Hmm.
Can you remember?
Oh, I was hoping that wasn't a question to me, because partly one, I wasn't quite listening, and I also don't have the answer.
Which,
it will have happened, obviously, but I can't think off the top of my head while I'm also doing other things to try and find that picture that you just mentioned.
Yeah, well, listen, we can probably answer my own question. We've seen when Buendia comes on for Coutinho that he can have an impact, but that's not really changing the game tactically. That's just bringing somebody in the same role who we think we can perform better in it for the last 20 minutes. I'm lost, mate. It's right, my stomach's rumbling. I'm thinking what I'm having for my tea. But I'm putting it back on you, Dan. I know you're not concentrating either, but what remind me again, what's his I've run out.
He's asking who can change the game off the bench, and it's players like Buendia when they're sat on the bench, or Bailey when he's on the bench, or someone like Danny Ings. But the problem is when they do come on, it either doesn't change the system. So Danny Ings is playing up front on his own to replace Ollie Watkins, and that doesn't quite work. Or Buendia comes in and he's slightly better than Coutinho, and you think Buendia's got to be starting. What the hell? And then he's just start a game and doesn't do enough, and then he's back out the team again. There isn't any consistency for someone like Buendia to play 6 games in a row, no matter what, and try and find some form and make a difference. But it's not like we're saying earlier at the start of the podcast about people like a Traore or Trezeguet, and someone's coming on who is worse than the player that they're replacing. Someone like Buendia comes on, he's a like-for-like replacement for Coutinho or Bailey in terms of quality. Buendia isn't coming off the bench as a downgrade, and you go, oh, he's not going to change the game because he's not good enough. It's just that the system isn't quite right, or the confidence isn't there. And while they're in this kind of period of trundling along, getting a point here and there, win here and there, it's like, well, what do we expect any of them to really do?
Yeah, listen, I mean, in-game management's an interesting one for me, because this sounds really, really cynical and negative, but I'm not sure how we can be expected to have much faith in his plan B for the last 20 minutes, half an hour of games, if the plan A for the first hour, we're chopping and changing, and we're not finding a way of nailing that each week. It's a manager who's muddled. He's finding his way. I'm not sure that we would have, probably people say, well, why didn't you? Funny that you didn't kind of raise this at the time last October or November, or whenever Gerrard came in. But I'm not sure you would have another manager with such a rookie CV being trusted with that job if he didn't come with a name that Steven Gerrard comes with, to be honest. I think we're finding a lot of that now. That's why we're saying how much of it was Michael Beale. That's why we're saying, can Gerrard manage squads and situations like the Tyrone Mings and the John McGinn thing? Does he know his first choice 11? Can he manage games? He's got in-game management that he can affect these things. He doesn't know all these answers. And as a young manager in any walk of life, not just in football, he's going to have to make a lot of mistakes before he knows these answers, because it's not the same as playing. Coaching and management's not the same. And I'm not sure that Aston Villa has the patience threshold for him to be making these mistakes with us when we were told that this was the time that Villa were going places.
I don't think any Premier League club has got the patience for that. I think if you're a mid-table Championship side that might be able to push into the playoffs at some point, you can go, well, if we lose a few games, it doesn't really matter because we're not expected to be doing anything really. But Villa, who are finishing mid-table and wanting to get into Europe, we can't afford to have a rookie manager learn on the job and make mistakes along the way, because we find ourselves with a point per game and in fear of relegation.
Well, generally, Dan, and I'm sure people will be able to spout lots of examples that prove I'm wrong, but I'll go ahead with and say it anyway. Generally, when you get a rookie manager learning his way in the Premier League, it's because he's the one who's got them promoted. They're expected to consolidate or to stay up and nothing else. And even that rookie manager who's got them promoted would probably have more experience managing in the lower leagues or in European leagues. So would know man management, would know how to change tactics mid-game and all these kind of things. So we've got a very, very strange situation whereby, how many managers recently have gone straight into the Premier League and hit the ground running? In terms of, even kind of, I know Gerrard has had his spell in Scotland, so he's not gone straight into the Premier League. but there's not many. Is there not? Certainly the big names. You know, even like the likes of Lampard and Rooney cut their teeth outside of the Premier League to start with as well, albeit for a very, very short spell with Lampard. I think we're asking him to learn on the job. He's not. He's trying to learn on the job. He's not used to knowing anything but success and love. So not only is he learning on the job, he's learning on the job in a real pressure cooker, following a man who had got a massive connection with Villa. And a bigger glare because he's Steven Gerrard than anybody than he's ever really had before in management. So I don't know. You either sink or you swim. And at the moment, he's treading water.
Yeah, you used the phrase treading water in the last episode as well. You must have watched it. You must have watched our great podcast last episode.
Yeah, definitely.
There's one more question that isn't on the list, but the picture I used was this one. I think I cropped out the bottom end of the picture with the corner flag in the video bit, so it kind of skews the perspective a bit. But that's the full image that I use for those that care. No one cares. It's like showing my granddad how to use a mobile phone or something, isn't it, this podcast with you? The last question, which came in last minute, I didn't get a chance to mock it up properly, was a silly nonsense question. I feel like we need that to end the podcast because it's been not a slog, but it's an hour 45 we've been going for, and there's a lot of sadness about Aston Villa, let's say. The guy recently moved to Hovin, which is not far from where you live, up in Rowley or Cradley or whatever it is. It's where I used to live. He was asking, what's the best takeaway? Well, you specifically said Indian, but then he said takeaway as well. So have you got a recommendation for a nice curry in Hovin or that kind of area?
I'm just trying to think. Well, we normally go there for our takeaways. I'm not saying it's the best in the world. I'm not saying I've got the most refined palate in the world. We don't normally just go to the Dilshad down Blackheath because it's just it's just standard. It's just we've always done it. And what I will say about the Dilshad is whether people not like the food or not, and I'm very satisfied customer. If for whatever reason they're running late, it doesn't happen very often. But if they're running late and you're going to collect it rather than it be delivered, they've tended to offer me a little drink while I've been waiting, which is pretty nice. Sometimes I get there and hope that it's running late so I can just chill out for like 10 minutes.
You could pay for a drink.
Say again?
You could get there early and pay for a drink.
Not now I've given this shout out. Don't want to pay for my food again. So that's where we go for Indian. I think it's chippy tea tonight. And I think she's going to be hammering down the door in a minute because she's going to want to know my order. But I think we're going to go to Merchants up the road for chippy tea tonight, which is opposite the Stag. Opposite the Stag and Three Horseshoes. Yeah, I think that's about it, mate. Where would you have tended to go back in the day when you were at Halzonian?
There's two I can think of for Halzonian, specifically in like the town centre. Do you know, remember when the Bangla Lounge burnt down? I don't know why I'm laughing because it's not funny.
Is Bangla Lounge the one at the top?
It's by the church. It's opposite the church.
Yeah, by the Wetherspoons.
Yeah. So there's that place. Yeah, it had a fire. So I don't know if it burnt down properly, but I'm sure it had a fire a few years ago. When they reopened, they gave the men would get a whiskey at the end of your order, and the women would get a Bailey's in little shot glasses at the end. And they did that when they reopened, like a goodwill gesture kind of thing, like thanks for coming back. They still, well, last time I went like a year ago, they still do that. All these years on, as you finish your meal and you get a little dram of whiskey. I think that's
the Bailey's though. I would.
Yeah, I would just go to the Bailey's. I'll try and swap that with somebody. But there's also a place called the Amina up by the Lidl. I don't know where the Lidl is, just up from the town centre, going like the opposite way. That's a nice place.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I always think these places are better when you go to eat in rather than a takeaway. It's never quite the same at home. I don't know why. Just like the food sweating in the bag, doesn't it?
I prefer if they give me a hot towel, which they can't really deliver at the door, can they?
Yeah.
Just to wipe my greasy head.
I'll bring a takeaway, but I want to bring me a hot towel in about 45-minute time as well. So yeah, I think that's it. But our longest podcast for a mile, for ages, for us doing a chat together. But obviously a lot of that isn't by us talking. We've filled up 20 minutes or so from the people that have sent stuff in. So thank you very much for those that did. I believe I've used everyone, so don't feel too disheartened if I didn't use yours. I must have just lost it in the post somewhere. But I'm pretty sure everyone who sent one had theirs featured. Did cut them down a little bit just for time reasons. I mean, I've cut them down. It still took us an hour and 50 minutes to get through them.
Do you know what you should do next time? And this is no, not meant to be too much of criticism. The ones that you read out, other people's opinions that you read
in
out.
an accent.
Just either you do them in an accent, or you get some random people. You get your mom to read one, or you get one of the lads in the office to read one and do it like that, just to vary it a little bit.
All right, noted.
All right.
That's a bit of feedback. Thank you for that. The number that I gave out, there's a few people asked throughout this saying, how do I get involved? I put a number out there somewhere. I'm not even going to say where it is because I don't want to entertain any more of these until we say we're going to do an episode. If you send me one in the next few days, I'm not even going to open it because my phone will be off. It was a work phone. So when I say we're doing a phone in, I don't want to
don't contact me until I tell you to contact me. Speak when you're spoken to.
Because I don't want to do these. Thing is, if we do this next week, everyone will be saying the same kind of things, but it'll be a different name that said it. So I want to wait until something happens with Villa, whether we get rid of the manager or it's 10 games down the line, and then we'll do another.
But don't you think, and again, this is a planning meeting and we'll let people go in a minute, don't you think it'd be a good idea to have like a little kind of rant line at the end of games that we could, when we do our immediate post-match for half an hour, 40 minutes, you could just put in...
The only problem with doing it live is what if somebody says something bad?
Well, we don't come on, do we, until whatever.
So you want me to get home from a game, do all the admin to get the pre-records in, get them loaded up, then we do the live stream, and then they go in afterwards? How much work do you want me to do on a match day? Unbelievable. Right, let's call it a day there. 1 hour, 50 minutes of Aston Villa chat. I think we've covered basically every topic you can think of. So that should be us done for the next few weeks. But we're back on Monday night, I expect. Is it going to be you and me again because we're on TV?
Yeah, is it on Sky?
It's on Sky, yeah, Monday Night Football. So we'll jump on a Monday evening at 11:30 or whatever time the game finishes. And we'll have half an hour chat then of...
Won't be that late, will it? It'll be about 10 o'clock, won't it?
10 o'clock then. All right, whatever. No one cares about the details. We'll be on Monday night. People know where to find us. If they're watching this, they know where to find the post-match show. So, yeah, we'll be back for that. Matt, thank you for your hour and 50 minutes of your time on a Friday afternoon. Fair play. Go and get your chippy tea. And thanks for everyone who watched along with this live and sent in their videos. If you're watching this on catch-up, get involved in the comment section as well. And, yeah, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again on Monday nights. Bye. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.